The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. The Arkansas Razorbacks, and my expectations for them this season, because this is the most interesting team that doesn't get all the media attention in the world in the SEC, because obviously if I had to say who's the most interesting team in the SEC this season, I'm going LSU, because there is so much questions and they're really an unpredictable team at this point. Like, they could honestly go out and have an amazing season next year and no one would be surprised, or they could go out and have a terrible season next year and no one would be surprised, because the talent is definitely there for LSU, but the coaching and everything last year showed otherwise and said otherwise, so you got some questions around there. But I look at Arkansas, and this is a very interesting team, because if you go back 2 years ago, this was not a team that you would say is capable of winning 3 SEC games, 4 SEC games, something like that. But yet, you fast forward 2 years after last season, obviously winning 3 SEC games, asterisk 4, obviously. I talk about that a lot when I talk about Arkansas, because technically in the rules, you talk about the Auburn game and you could give them a 4th win, but obviously that's for another time. We could talk about that later. But Sam Pittman does have this program trending in the right direction. And I want to kind of go down through them this season and what I expect. So first of all, let's just talk about the offense quickly. KJ Jefferson's obviously going to step in at quarterback. I'm excited to see what he has. He has a good arm next year, good size. Excited to see how he steps in his first full year starting. I'm expecting big things out of him, and just want him to be consistent and competitive, and I'm excited to watch KJ next season. All 5 starters return for Arkansas on the O-line, which is always a huge, huge thing when you have returning experience that have been starters. That is going to be huge for Arkansas next season. You look at the receiving game, I think that the receiving game is obviously a huge strength for Arkansas this season, because obviously you have one of the best wide receivers in the SEC in Traylon Burks coming in this season, and then you have a huge tight end target in Hudson Henry at the tight end position. Obviously, you got a transfer in Crawford from OU who should also help out there, and then on top of that, you're going to have Jackson Jr. and Warren to help you on top of that. And then at the running back position, probably going to be Traylon Smith. I'm expecting Traylon Smith to go out and be the main guy. Now, looking at the defensive side of the ball, I look at Grant Morgan and I look at Bumper Pool to be the strength of this defense. Obviously, the linebacker position, I think as a whole, is going to be the strength for Arkansas this season. I also think that secondary has a huge, huge capability to be very impressive this year. Obviously, Jalen Catalan is going to be the main guy there. Hudson Clark, I know he had the big 3-pick game last season. I'd like to see him. I don't know if he's going to start this season, but obviously he's a guy that when you think about Arkansas DBs is going to pop into your head. But that's just kind of a quick rundown. I don't need to go through the whole team analysis because I already did that in my 2021 early predictions for Arkansas. But I want to go through kind of their schedule and talking about where do I see this Arkansas team falling. So first of all, I think the Hogs have 3 easy wins. I look at Rice, I look at Georgia Southern, and I look at Arkansas Pine Bluff to all be wins for Arkansas. I don't think that should be any question. If they do slip up in one of those games, I think that something goes extremely wrong. Right now, in this current moment in time, those 3 games should be marked up as wins for Arkansas. So right now you have 3 on the board. And if you watched I did a tier making video a while back of putting each SEC team in a tier, and I put Arkansas as a bowl lock team, which is very interesting because as I start to go through the schedule and schedule more, I start to become more worried about that being a realistic expectation, because not because Arkansas is a bad team. I just look at the schedule and I'm reminded how extremely tough that this schedule actually is. I ranked Arkansas my number 1 toughest schedule in the SEC for my SEC schedule rankings that I just released last week. So if you haven't watched that, check that out. I have 4 toss-up games. I think one of them could be marked down as a win, or it's more favorable, definitely. I got Auburn, I got at Ole Miss, I got Mississippi State, and I got Missouri. Now, Mississippi State, I'm guessing that's a game that Arkansas should be favored in. I'd say Arkansas has a really, really good chance to win that. So if you want to throw that in the win category, if you're an Arkansas fan, then do so. So that I would say you have 4 wins, and that leaves you to get in a bowl spot, you need 2 wins against these 3 teams. You got Auburn, you go to Ole Miss, and then you go to Missouri. If I were to rank those games, or you don't go to Missouri, sorry, that game's in Little Rock, I'm pretty sure. If I were to rank these 4 games from easiest to toughest, I'm going Auburn at home would be the easiest, in my opinion. Then we go Missouri in Little Rock, and then we go at Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is a good team this year. Although you did beat them last year, yes, I'm not sure that Matt Corral is going to throw the 6 interceptions that he did in that game, but you travel to Oxford. I think that makes it tougher, and I expect this Ole Miss offense to be really, really good this season. So that's my toughest because you're on the road, and I think Ole Miss, out of those 4 teams I just named, is probably the best team out of all of them. Missouri, I think, is a really good team, but I think it's good that you get them in Little Rock. Although that is a neutral site, you don't play them at home. I got to double check, but I'm pretty sure that game is in Little Rock. Again, I got to double check. I heard that, don't mark me on this, but someone told me that game got moved from, the Little Rock game got moved to the Arkansas Pine Bluff one. So that game might be at home, but either or, I still think Missouri's in the middle of the pack between those two, and then you're going to have Auburn as the easiest. Obviously, the Auburn game last year, you get them at home. I think that is a winnable scenario. So let's say out of those 3 games, what do I expect? I think easily, what's my best bet? I think easily they win one of them. I'll say my best bet is that Arkansas could take 2 of those 3 games. I'm going to go 1.5. 1.5 would probably be my best bet. And if you would have given me an over-under on that, if I had to pick between, they're either going to win one of those games or 2, I think you take the Auburn one. It's the Missouri one that's really tough for me because that was a close game last year, a really, really good game last year. I'm going to go with 1 win. I still think Missouri's a good team. You got to travel. Missouri does have to travel there, but out of those games, the 4 wins, the 1 Auburn win, or the 1 win out of those 3 games, I have Arkansas at 5 wins. And then my games that are a bit out of reach for Arkansas this season, I have Texas, I have at LSU, I have Texas A&M, and I have Georgia. And then Alabama should be on there too. I think the games that are out of reach, Texas, at LSU, Texas A&M, UGA, and then Alabama are all going to be your unlikely games, obviously. I think that Alabama's out of reach. I think that Georgia's out of reach. I think Texas A&M might be a possibility. It will be a slim possibility, but you get that game in Arlington. Slight chance of that happening. I think I think Texas is the most likely out of all those to become an upset because there are tons of Arkansas fans excited for that game, and it is a rivalry game for Arkansas fans, so I think that team is going to be really pumped up for that game. And overall, I think going to Death Valley is a lot harder than playing Texas at home, so I do think that Texas is the most likely out of all of them. I think this team, my expectation for them is to fall somewhere within the 7-5 to 5-7 range. I think that this is easily a 5-win team. I don't think that this team hits 8 wins this season. I think that that's a bit tough, but I'd like to see this team in a bowl game. I think it's important for the SEC to see this team in a bowl game because repetition, not only the repetition of the top being the top, your Alabamas, your Georgias, and everything like that, but the repetition of the bottom being the bottom. In the last couple of seasons, Arkansas has been that bottom team. It will be good for the SEC as a conference if we see Arkansas improve this season and kind of shake up the West this season. Not see them as the bottom team, but see them as a threat for every single team. I'm not saying that they're going to be serious threats for Alabama, but when Texas A&M and LSU and Auburn and your Ole Misses and your Mississippi States, when they had to play Arkansas, it's not, okay, we got an automatic win on the schedule. We can go march into Fayetteville and come out with a win, or they can come in here and we can come out with a win easy. It's now, okay, guys, we actually got to take this Arkansas team serious because they got some talent over there, and Sam Pittman is doing something really good. So I think it's good for the SEC if we do see Arkansas make a bowl game this year. If I had to go, my expectation, I'm going to go 6-6. I still think that this is a bowl-ready team. I think that the talent on this team, you drop this team in any other conference, I think that they're a bowl team. The schedule will be the only thing that keeps Arkansas from being a bowl team this season. So that is my expectation for Arkansas. I have them somewhere between 7-5, 5-7. I do think that this is a bowl team. But if they don't make a bowl, it's going to be their tough schedule that holds them back from that 110%.